My hat! Alright guys,
I don't like where that going from.
I'm recording, so Ted be Ted.
No, don't be Ted. You know what, I'm putting
The motor in particular I want to talk about is the 21.5 by Hobbywing. It's the V10 G4. It's just a 21.5. That's the one I'm going to have the running videos. I'm going to show you and talk about some of my results, my thoughts, my opinions after using this motor for quite a bit. But Hobbywing makes some really, really bold claims. One of the things that they talk about is maximum output. There's an increase. Do I believe that? Yes, I do. And if you haven't watched my KV videos, I do have a video that shows the KVs for the 13.5, 21.5, and 17.5 as well. But the 21.5 is the one that I'm most concerned with. And yes, there's an increase in power output. They talk about performance, cooling, and cooling. They talk about a massive increase in the cooling capacity compared to the V3. Now, I'm not comparing this motor necessarily to the V3, but cooling-wise, this motor runs surprisingly cool compared to other motors. Now here it says 25.6, so almost 26% greater heat dissipation. That might be from the larger laminations because there's more surface area. So if you're familiar with the V3 or some other brands, the laminations are not all the way to the outside, such as this. They're a little smaller. So that could be a reason why, because this motor definitely runs cooler than some of the other 21.5 motors I've used in the past. Dual sensor ports, it has that, but the boldest of all claims is the following. So these are the claims right here. Tabs are awesome. The end bell is great, but look at these claims right here. 200 degrees Celsius high temperature resistant wire. Therefore, you're not going to melt this, the coating or the enamel there, until you exceed this amount. This is a massive temperature. This is a lot of energy. This is 200 degrees Celsius for those of you that use Fahrenheit. This is 392 Fahrenheit. The rotor, 180 degrees Celsius high temperature resistant explosion proof rotor. So this thing's not going to blow up on you under this temperature, supposedly. Not that I'm going to try, but 180 degrees Celsius, for those of you that use Fahrenheit, that's 356 degrees Fahrenheit. This is massive. Now, they are not claiming here that you're not going to lose magnetism if you heat up the motors, but in this test, one of the things that you're going to see is I did. I brought my motor up to a pretty high temperature, as you're going to see later on, but most importantly, I want you to see how it did compared to my friend's car, who is running the same type of motor. It's a 21.5 Hobbywing G4. So we're running the same motors. The difference is the FDR. I geared for speed. He geared conservatively. And his end bell reads 50 degrees. My end bell reads 53. So I'm not just driving with an FDR for more top speed. I'm also driving with greater timing, which draws more amps and creates more heat. And you're going to see how it performs. Alright, so my buddy Extra Crispy, he's that car to the left, the front one, then my car is the green one. We're about to play Chase, just to show you the cars. So, to go again into some of the details, we're both running Hobbywing G4 motors. They're both 21.5. So, the same, not just the same class motor, but the same brand, same motors. Now, not all motors are identically the same, but it's close enough. Now, they are set up with different FDRs. So I'm running an 83 spur with a 48 pinion. And I forget what he's running, but he was about 25 to 30% more conservative. So if you just do the ratio, you can figure out an approximate FDR that he is running. Timing wise, I'm running at higher timing, so the end bells, just to go based on the end bells, his end bells at 50, mine's at 53, so I'm doing more KVs. I'm also drawing more amps, but we were curious how they would do, and one of the things to note is he is a better driver, but notice in the straight how I catch up. And this is something that's going to happen left and right, and even though he's a far better driver, we have some of the, I would say, best battles if I don't hit the dots. For some reason, I think I'm Pac-Man for once in a while, and I get a little too excited, and I just need to eat those dots. But notice the vehicles. So here, again, we're playing chase, so I'm right behind him. And once we get into the straight, you're going to notice this again. Again, same motors, and I'm just going to pull ahead. Now, really quick, none of us are using boost or timing. See, I just pass him. I was in front and then quickly lost it. So he's in front again. But I have a Hobbywing just stock. That's the ESC. Nothing special. There's no timing or boost. This is the motor. So watch again. Catch up. Here I go. All right. If only I were a better driver. Actually, I did change the setup on the car. I don't remember if it was before this or after this. I believe it was after this, and it handled a lot better. And it's actually thanks to my buddy. So he's the guy to the left. Some people know him as Extra Crispy. Some people know him as Andy. Other people know him as Hey You. I'm not sure how you might know him, but really cool guy. But here he is. We're just using each other's cars as a benchmark. Now I hit the dot, completely rolled, so now I have to do the walk of shame. So let me go do that real quick. Alright, my buddy's waiting for me there by the driver's stand, and here I go. Alright, so we're doing chase again, so he's about to hit the straightaway, he takes off, and here I go right behind him, and again, it doesn't really take much effort for me, but the point isn't really how fast I can catch up to him, the point is how the car does, because the car is going to run very, very hot, and well, I'm saying very, very hot in comparison, but when it came to the voltage, both of our batteries were both running 6,000 milliamp hour batteries. I'm running a Gense's Redline. He's running a different brand. We should have kept the same brands. But here we go again. So you waited a little. We're going on the straight. This time it's just to see how we do on the straight. Again, if I were a better driver. But the voltage was very similar. So he was at approximately 3.85 volts per cell, whereas I was at 3.1 roughly. So I was right at the storage, right at storage, pretty much after running for 10 minutes perhaps, a bit longer on these packs, which is very, very good. And keep in mind, when it comes to heat, that's a lot of time. That's more than an actual race. And I'm pretty sure he hit me somehow. I'm kidding. I'm pretty sure I hit him. I guess I could always go back. But anyway, so the point is that this is a lot of stress on a car because a race is generally about 5 minutes. Here we're running for a lot more. Originally we had set a timer for 5 minutes, and then I don't know what happened, it didn't go off. So we just kept on racing. Why not, right? We're just having fun. We don't really get that many practice days here in San Jose. We would generally have to go to Fresno or Ripon. Those are probably the closest to permanent tracks. If any of you know of a permanent track that's nearby, let me know, especially if it's carpet. That would be awesome. But if there's a practice day, we just have to jump on these practice days. Actually, I was here since 10 to 7. Anyway, that aside, so I'm going to give you the temperatures in a bit, but once again, I want you to notice how the motor is not fading, and that's one of the most important things. So my motor is not fading, it is still running. My buddy's actually behind me now, so I'm ahead, so he's the one that's trying to catch up to me. I'm just pulling on the straight, and then the turns, that's where he gets me. Now, really quick on my car, one of the things that I did is well, one, I flew because I thought it was a transformer and it was just going to turn into a jet or something. But it turned out I put the pills in the front of the suspension on backwards. So I was actually at 9 degrees caster instead of 5. So that was messing everything up. And then the camber gain in the rear, that was a whole other issue because I was trying to compensate for the front, not realizing what was going on. So my buddy actually caught that, but it was after this, unfortunately. And then I managed to fix my front camber, set it to actually 4 degrees. I believe it's 4 degrees. And then I added a little more camber gain in the rear, and that really stabilized the car. It's interesting. So the car that I'm driving is an X4. He's driving a T4. And then I do have some comments later on of when he drove my car and I drove his car. There's actually a funny story, but I'm going to do that. That's for another video, that comparison. Same day. We're actually going to swap transmitters just to swap cars, but notice this thing's still going on. So he's going to take over my car, I'm going to take over his car just to see how our cars feel, so his T4 versus my X4. And this is actually kind of how we find out. It turns out he ends up really liking my car, but that's for another video, like I said. So I want to go ahead and just pause here. And like I said, he's at 7.7 volts, which comes out to 3.85 volts per cell, versus mine, which read lower voltage per cell, but unfortunately, just because of the screen, it's not going to show through in the camera. So that's what it that's what the screen looks. But it was less. It was about say 381. Now, yeah, that's what happened. That's how we found out. So he ended up breaking my car. Again, this is for a different video, but that's how we found that out. Anyway, but not a big deal. I do have extra parts, so it's just that knuckle right there. That's what broke, and then a little piece of plastic that goes on the end of the CVD that came off. But this is the motor. So this is a Hobbywing 21.5. I have a ProTech shroud and fan. So there's the motor. I'm not sure if you can see the timing mark. It's not really focusing, but it's 53 timing mark. And that's the green body. So now to show you that is his vehicle. So that's his Hobbywing right in there. And I'm not sure if you can see the timing mark, but it's at about 50 for the timing mark. And then after this, I got everything fixed, and then we went back at it again. So here we go. So right now, there's his car, and then I'm the one playing chase. And we do it again. This time, we fixed the suspension. So luckily, thanks to that brake, we're inspecting the vehicle, and then he realized my caster was way off. I mean, I thought it was off, but I was going based on the little dots on the pills, so I thought it was probably my imagination. Nope, they were definitely backwards. Good thing for electronics and cell phones who managed to do the data. So we each made a few little tweaks and then just rolled them out again. But the main point is the following. So I'm actually going to skip ahead and skip all of this because you've already seen enough runs, I'm sure. But notice how I'm still catching up. And even after this run, so you saw that massive 10-minute run. After the second run again, notice there's no fade on either motor. There's no fade on, especially my motor. And these are the results for the temperature.
Just go from the bottom. So I'm at
130.
and are you getting it?
Yep.
190.
190. Okay.
That's way over.
I am high.
You see it? You got it?
Yep.
And then here. You got it?
Alright, so that's definitely a lot cooler. What about the same spot? If you do the same,
Here?
I'm curious, yeah, what the difference is.
You want to film it? So that reads about 150.
150.
And then on mine, 109.
109. Alright, so I got to drop.
So on that last bit, I figured the original audio would be best. But long story short, his motor is about 109 to 130, so that's about 43 to 54 Celsius. My motor is from about 150 to 190 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's about 66 to 88. So while we admire my broken car again, yeah, this motor is insane because I drove this for an entire series, which is a few races, and then now for practice, and I mean, it was overheating the motor, but still not fading at all. It's still torquey, it's still powerful, good amount of RPM. So I will have to say that I am genuinely impressed with Hobbywing. Now notice, I'm saying genuinely impressed. I'm not saying it's the best motor out there. Definitely not the worst, but for me, I'm sticking with this 21.5. I'm really impressed with what Hobbywing has done. So is my buddy, to be honest. So these motors, yes, Hobbywing makes some bold claims, but I think they back them up. This being said, I hope this was informative, or at least entertaining. Please subscribe if you have not, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Oh, my hair! My tongue! My rod!